Test, test, test. Hi. It doesn't, yeah, right. Work? Yeah, okay. And then it's fine.
Normally they give you a.
They have some. Maybe they bring one. Let's see, if not, I would say, because it's figure out, right? How good that.
Tu, quindi ok, fai del tuo, tanto vedere bene, e vedi tutti i backup che vuoi. Questo schermo qua, vedrai esattamente quello che devo vedere. Lo schermo, quindi questo è lo schermo, non sarà un po'. No, guarda, qui si è trovato
zapravo je tam dobra pozicija, ali ti puno ljudi ne hodaju i dotiraju. Slijepo satnije nispod i ono. Ali tu ljudi puno hodaju i tam malo manje. Tam je bolje jer mi je ovaj ekrančić sa ove strane. Na ovoj strani mi je ekran do zida. Onda,
Sì, va bene, perché vedevi no, sembra una gatta, tanto questo è quello che si vede là, quindi loro non vedono le cose. Ma tanto posso arrestare, stavo già mettere in qualsiasi degli angoli. Ora vogliamo proprio, can we remove it? No?
I mean, we can. I don't think. Should we have some sort of? Still we do it on Zoom without video of the Zoom.
Which is also a good point.
So do we? Or without the link?
It covers the presentation.
But imagine you are on Zoom. Does this information?
For Zoom, this is a valid information.
Yeah, this is only for Zoom.
The back of the head of
So what do we do?
I think it's best like Zara Maria decide how should I.
Yeah, so
She can't see.
okay, then we just go with that. I mean, we have 3 people on Zoom. No, we have
but there will be more.
potentially-
There will be more.
But we have potentially 100 people on Zoom, but 3
yeah.
people are real.
Oh, come on, no, a lot of people.
A lot of people on Zoom.
To čiste čaše ili ne?
Pa trebali bi biti čiste jer mi nismo danas imali ništa
A
ovdje.
ništa nije bilo lako.
Jedino ako je to od...
A, da je dobro.
A to je onda od... Je, to je onda od...
Ajde reći ono da je, ne?
Vode su okej, a čaše što minimum, da.
Okej, samo čaše.
Da.
Koliko treba, 2 čaše?
2 čaše, da.
Prendiamo la nostra scarica. Con questi. Non sono un granché effettivamente, però. Oppure ti do questo qua. Prova. Sì, no. Questo, dai, questo forse. Allora, fatto vedere se accendi semplicemente vedete acceso e le premuto. Io te li metto per sicurezza e verso l'altra.
Prova, ok, sì.
Quest'altro, prova.
Verifica che non ho batterie nel caso ci sia qualche problema. No, Perfect. Maybe we can do magari la presentazione di quelli, benissimo, poi per fare le domande e poi buttare anche queste qua.
Sì.
Esatto. E spegnere per un po'.
Prova? Ok.
Comunque poi ti arrivano a prendere loro quando è finito.
Io mi ha capito la cosa. Non lo so una collega. Hoće biti i onda. Ja ne smijem. Dare per bene Giampiero.
Ja sam njega poslao da je on stavio ovu dvoranu na podi i on je stavio ovu dvoranu na Hey, morning.
Let me see what is written, if I agree or not.
Non esagerare.
No, I will not say all this. I will not say all this. I will more focus on certain things. But let me see what is written. Okay, the first I will. Ne bi ja to komentirao, moguće lijepo. Ja. Mogu li da, lajte kako? Kako? They're all important. Maybe I will read all of them and add some more by myself. So I will spend 10 minutes of your time. Don't worry about questions. Yeah. Photo with a chair. Big. One here and one with the close up. One with I'm saying I don't people on the paper. Very well selected. Or maybe I don't. No. Yeah, I used to have this one. And Rafaela was paying mostly the on them and try to apply the hourly that the permanent fiction stuff. They turn them down. It's only represented to our funds actually never. The worst minute people. Actually, for the whole thing in my life, I go classified language and course and I know. We have, he was in charge of our and start with it. And they allow to go to our tenant. That's the one that we do. They have it in field. But I made them others. The company. I enjoy that. I enjoy it. Not because I'm a mean person, but because I know that they were having very minor between things. And I think the people that I work with. What? For the fact I have come together. Yeah. Anyway. Not only with survival, I enjoy and never look at things like but they came very well. I enjoy how complicated now that I can. I enjoy it. I don't, I'm not the mean person. I'm not a mean person. Everything that happens when they will help. It's so much the feeling it is. Why should you? I think that's a matter of like failure, but they don't like me. Because the first ever, and you allow it to go away, but again, he doesn't care. Kind of, savings or so, but the board. And how these are afternoon? There's some, but no,
Okay, but we have to review this one. This better from
are you stand there?
that start.
No, I think better. If you feel, or even the front here, you want to see. But you look for the
It's yours. Oh, I cannot.
yeah, it's for, yeah, sorry. Come stai? Hi. This that's the clean. No problem. I wait for your signal to start. It's clean there? Okay. Thank you very much. Morning. Καλημέρα, καλημέρα. Ah, okay. Then this is also mine. Yes. Not. Okay, I think we can start. It is really my privilege to introduce the speaker of this morning session. I know Anna Maria for many years, so I will be happy to introduce her for this session. Anna Maria Buonomano obtained her bachelor and master's degree in engineering management from University of Naples Federico II and a PhD in energetics from University of Palermo in 2010. She have over the years some important appointments. She was visiting scholar at the Energy Performance of Building Group at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in USA, of course, in 2009, researcher at the Ben Gurion National Solar Energy Center at Jacob Bluestein Institute for Desert Research of University of Ben Gurion, of course, in Israel in 2011, and several times visiting scientists at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, where we met once also during my visit there as well, where she was appointed as affiliate assistant professor at the Department of Building, Civil and Environmental Engineering in 2017. She's actively involved in research topics regarding building energy efficiency, with a particular focus on the development of performance simulation models and investigation of innovative building plant solutions based on integrated construction techniques, innovative HVAC systems, and novel renewable energy technologies, including solar heating and cooling systems, concentrated photovoltaics, solar thermal systems, poly generation, vehicle to grid, vehicle to building, and related advanced concepts. She's also involved in collaborative research activities relative to the design of net zero energy buildings in communities through the integration of passive solar thermal systems in buildings and the use of electric vehicles to add flexibility to buildings. I already said that we collaborated also in the past, something which is not included in this short CV. And recently, Anna Maria took over as subject editor of the Journal of Renewable Energy, where I'm the editor in the area of energy policy and economics. So I'm sure the presentation will be on a very comprehensive subject of pathways for decarbonizing the transportation sector. So Anna Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Calogero. It's my honor to be introduced by you, and thank you very much to all the audience for being here. This presentation is about how we can decarbonize the transportation sector. It's a topic quite large and especially broad, but I would like to give you an overview of the technologies and the methods that we can exploit in order to achieve the decarbonization in a very hard to abate, let's say, sector. I don't want to overlap with all the information we have got in the last days provided by other speakers, but it's important to underline that the transportation sector requires almost 30% of the global energy demand. And something which is much more important is that over 90% of transportation is fueled by petroleum-based products. And this means this complicates things when we come to decarbonization of the systems. Something else I would like to mention when talking about transportation is that due to the increase of population, due to also to the growth of our increase of several countries, especially in Asia, the demand of energy consumption for the energy demand for transportation sector will double by 2050 and will most probably triple by the end of the century. So we have to do something now. We are already late, and there is no time to wait in order to decarbonize this sector. If we take a look at the fuel required by transportation mode, we can notice something quite interesting. Sometimes some things are already known. Let's say, for example, the transportation side, the rail transportation sector is the most sustainable subsector. It's the most sustainable way to travel, and almost 50% of fuel is basically electricity in this subsector. But there are two other sectors that run mostly 100% of fossil fuel, which are aviation and maritime. And I like to call them the elephant in the room, because at the end of the decarbonization pathway, we will be able to decarbonize several subsectors, but it will be very hard to decarbonize transportation and aviation. Due to that energy demands, 73% of 23% of global greenhouse gas emissions are emitted by transportation sector, and 73% of the sector CO2 is due to the road transportation. And clearly, this is why there is so much attention in the decarbonization of light-duty vehicles, especially in the electrification of these vehicles. And cars, in fact, cars advance, they emit 48%, almost 50% of CO2 emission on the global scales. According to the International Energy Agency, by 2050, we need to cut the emission of the transportation sector by 90%. So we need to go from 7.2 to 0.7 gigatons of emissions, and in order to achieve the zero energy goal. If you can notice in this chart, we will achieve zero energy at the total, from the global point of view, but transportation will be still emitting emissions, so CO2 emissions. So that's why before I said we will have something, even if we implement all the decarbonization action, we will be still late, and there will be also the weight of transportation sector at that point will be very high. it will be probably less. It will consume, it will emit mostly or probably 60% of CO2 emission in the world. According to international energy agents, but also there is a general consensus in this from this point of view. We can act from on 3 levels in order to achieve decarbonization. First of all, we need to change our behavior. We know that we can do, we learned that we can change our behavior. We did it during the pandemic. Of course, we cannot rely on extreme events in order to decarbonize transportation sector, because why we can go by walk or you can bike. This cannot be done all the time. We can use railways, but sometimes we will use the car. So we cannot rely totally on behavioral change, but still we can do something as professors, as scientists. We need to educate people in order to let them know how much is the impact of transportation sector on the disruption of our planet, but also we can support the citizen engagement through our mission. 2 other strategies are the most important to be put in action in order to reduce the sector energy demand. First, I would like to, the first and most important from my point of view is the improvement of energy efficiency. First, we reduce the demand. I'm thinking about that we can retrofit ships, for example, we can electrify electric vehicles. And secondly, when this is done, we need to, as a second option, also a long-term option, we need to scale up the production of low-emission carriers and fuels, because this is the only way in this sector to achieve decarbonization. Let's go and let's see how we can decarbonize the transportation sector by considering different scale, a distance scale. Let's see how I mean the split in the presentation in order to give for you to easily understand what the storytelling of this presentation. So first of all, I will talk about city transportation, intercity transportation, international transportation. City transportation is related to urban transport, and urban transport, we noticed before, 73% of CO2 is emitted by light-duty vehicles, and especially because urban transportation is gonna increase so much next year, also because of the urbanization of our cities. So 70% of people will live in our cities by 2050. And the focus of this, something that we have to understand for the urban transportation decarbonization is that to allow electric vehicles, to increase the penetration of electric vehicles, to allow them to cooperate in the electrification of our sector, it is essential, it is important to consider the nexus between the electric vehicles and its hub. It can be the network or the building integrating renewable energy systems. The first things that we consider we have to do for decarbonize the road transportation is to replace all internal combustion engine vehicles with zero carbon, zero emission vehicles. This is something that can be done by incentivizing the electric cars by making them more affordable, not only for all the population, so for everybody. The method to do this are tax credit, tax exemption. There are in place in different countries, different kind of strategies in order to achieve this goal. We have to also to disincentivize the use of internal combustion engine vehicles by, for example, implementing zero energy emission areas in city center. These are 2 of the action that we can do from policy point of view. And we can also, we have to also to consider that, especially to the Amazonization of the freight transportation in our cities, we need to use new modes of transport goods inside the city, and one of these is the e-bike delivery for last mile logistics. There's no point to decarbonize the road transportation, especially in urban cities, without increasing the power capacity from RES. This is something that I'm not going to go into this because you had a lot of information about this topic, but something that I would like to mention to give you a better perspective on what we are doing is that at the moment, there are on our road 41 million of electric vehicles. The amount of vehicles that are in this moment in service are 1.5 trillions. So you can understand the difference, how low is this percentage. However, 41 million consume 130 terawatt per hour of electricity. This electricity correspond to 0.5% of the final electricity demand on a global scale. According to all the forecasts and all the pathway roadmaps for the decarbonization, by 2035, we need to increase this number to 600 million vehicles. But 600 million vehicles will require electricity equal to 2,000 terawatt per hour. 2,000 terawatt per hour is almost a quarter of the electricity demand, renewable electricity demand that nowadays is produced in globally. So electricity demand, renewable electricity demand is produced but for all sectors, not only for vehicles. So this gives us an information or a suggestion to understand that we need to increase the capacity of renewable energy system inside our city, but also outside, because we will not be able to do this in order to support the penetration of electric vehicles. And in order to also support the penetration of electric vehicles by in some way alleviating the impact of electric vehicles on the grid. And one of the way that we can, one of the strategy that we can use is considering to improving, using the electric vehicles not only as mobile system, but also as a storage system. So we can exploit the battery of the electric vehicles, and it's going to be a distributed energy storage in our city in order to store as much energy, renewable energy production that we have that we have in general, and also to provide other services. Which kind of services? As I said before, grid, alleviating the grid impact of the electric vehicles, but also provide power to to our homes in case of power outage, reduce emission or whatever. Use of electric vehicles as energy storage and energy vectors has been investigated and integrated in several concepts, in several strategies. Probably you are familiar with vehicle to grid or vehicle to building or building to vehicle to grid. How it works generally, in this, using the electric vehicles to store electricity is something that can be done by each of us, if we have if we have charging station, charging points at our house, so we can charge our electric vehicles with renewable electricity during the day. We can eventually dispatch the electricity stored inside our battery to other buildings that maybe cannot be refurbished. So this is the concept of vehicle to building. So this supply electricity to other buildings, so not to the building where electricity is produced. We can also during the day, we can provide electricity to the grid and deliver the electricity to the grid when requested by the grid. This is also the case of demand response program. Anyway, we can help the grid to work in a better way. And the electric vehicles can be used, of course, as I said before, to power the house where it was charged at the beginning of the day. So we can change in some way the profile of the demand of our homes, but we can also provide power to our homes in case of power outage. Despite the objection to this technology, around the world there are several pilot projects in Colorado, California, in China that are implementing this technology. With time, probably, and we hope that with time that it will be much more deployed in our cities. What can we do as researchers in order to improve the deployment, to help this strategy to be applied in more cities and to be considered by more users? There are some doubts from stakeholders. I mean, there are the unavailability of data is something that does not allow people to take it into consideration in a serious way. So we need to develop simulation model in order to provide best case scenarios, so to analyze different comparing scenarios of the use of electric vehicles in our cities by considering the real usage of our cars. We can also try to provide, in any case, information for policymakers and also for stakeholders. And this is something very important that we can do by developing simulation tools, by developing analysis in order to simulate all possible kind of connection of the electric vehicles with the grid and with our buildings. It's a way that we can exploit in order to reduce energy consumption at urban level by the transportation system. As a researcher, we should also try to investigate much better to provide more information about other business model that can be developed by the implementation of electric vehicles in our cities. I'm just thinking about battery swap, the use of battery of our car, the second life, or the possibility to have to lease battery instead of owning our own batteries. And also to consider energy consumer, analyze energy communities and car sharing options. By the way, I always say that we cannot solve a new problem with an old solution. The old solution is generally that we are used to have to own a car. We have our private cars, okay? So we like to have a single car, each of us. In USA, the ratio between population and cars is almost 1-to-1. So to reduce the number of cars, also electric vehicles, also because we need to reduce the material extraction for producing the batteries for our vehicles, it is important, it is crucial to invest in public electrified transport and to encourage and to support the use of bus, trams, metro inside our cities, but also to provide different innovative ways to travel in our cities. The use of public electric transportation, in particular train, is the best way to also travel outside from our city for extra travel, extra urban transportation. And also in this case, even if the transportation sector, the railways consume a lower part of energy demand, emit is small emission, I mean small part of CO2 emission, it is important to also decarbonize transportation sector by rails. There is one rail, of course, train are the key solution for the intercity transportation, but also they can be also used to reduce the number of flights, especially short flights, and reduce the use of cars when we travel from far away from, in non-extra urban areas. So we need to understand that also, of course, when I say that we can reduce the number of cars, can use the use of cars, can reduce the use of short-haul flights, this can be done if there is availability of high-speed rails. So otherwise, it's gonna be very difficult to encourage people to use train instead of use airplanes. And in this way, there is something else that we must do is the investment in high-speed railways for passenger and freights. In several countries, in several regions, this has been done in a very effective way, especially in Europe or in China, where you can move around anywhere with high-speed rails. Electrification of trains is still something that we need to do. International Energy Agency reports that the only transportation sector on track for the zero emission goal is train, but still we have to reduce by 5% per year the emission of trains. So to do so, there are only few ways. We need to decarbonize, we need to electrify the trains which are not already electrified. To do so, we can use batteries implemented on board of our trains. We can use hydrogen, is another option, alternative fuels, and you can also use biodiesel as drop-in fuels. These are more or less the option that we have in order to electrify our trains. There is also at intercity level, there is also the need to decarbonize the freight transport on long distance. And for the decarbonization of freight transport on long distance, we can use, yes, the electrification, for example, by considering overhead electrified lines, as you can see in this in the second picture, and you can also implement the use of hydrogen for the long distance travels. I just think about hydrogen valley and the roads between used by trucks for transporting freights. Despite the fact that transportation is required, is already in some way sustainable, to decarbonize again more and more transportation, the station will play a crucial part. So any station, but also any other hubs, we will see with the ports, but we will see also with airports, need to become energy hubs, not only mobility hub, but also energy hubs. So from this point of view, the research, and there are several initiatives to, especially also the companies, operators or railway station operators are more and more interested in identify this strategy, the solution to decarbonize the demand of the train station, but also to implement in a correct way renewable energy solution on the station. But not only energy, renewable energy solution by in this case photovoltaics or other system, but also the production become energy hubs for the production of hydrogen at the station level. And so the railway station is gonna play an important role in order to decarbonize the demand of the trains, but also the demand of our communities located nearby. From considering train, there is an interesting, in the interest of railway companies is much more, in the last year have been increasing in the the efficiency of the HVAC systems. HVAC system consume 30% of energy consumption of a train. And they are also responsible for the quality of air and the comfort of people in the train. So in order to help the railway, the stakeholders, in order to improve the quality of the train and make energy efficiency inside the train, it is important for us as a researcher to provide them the solution for minimize the consumption of the HVAC system by implementing innovative system, not only at HVAC level, but also at the level of the carriage. So improving the transmission, the heat transfer of the carriage in order to reduce the impact of the external condition on the train. And also railways companies are also much more interested in using dynamic, they want to know how to use dynamic energy simulation for analyzing the energy demand of their system. So as a researcher, scientists, we need to help the railway sector in order to analyze which are the best solution and how to select the best solution to be implemented on board the trains, but also to be implemented on the train stations. Just considering that the efficiency action that we can implement by using available technologies that are on the market nowadays, we can reach up the energy demand of the buildings, railway building stock that consume 10% of the total demand of the railway sector. When there is no possibility to move by train, what do we do? There's nothing left. We need to use airplanes. I'm not gonna go too much into airplanes, but it's something. There are several study from a scientist that report that 50% of our flights are unnecessary. So one of the first thing that we do is to reduce flights and to reduce the use of airplanes, but it's something that cannot be so easily done. Anyway, if you consider the amount of energy related CO2 emission from the aviation sector, we can notice that domestic flights and consume almost 40% of the energy consumption of the sector. This is why the ban on short haul flights and by moving all the transportation on short distance from flights to the train, so to the railways, we reduce the consumption, the energy demand of the sector by almost 50%. Something else that we must notice is that cruise ships as short haul flights, which is also can be considered not very necessary. They are the most they have the highest carbon footprint when we consider the emission of CO2 per passenger per kilometer. So these are very energy intensive, and they consume, if we compare the consume of a short haul flights per passenger per kilometers, Eurostar, so intercity train consume 4 CO2 instead of 250. So this confirms that we need to rely on other transportation mode. In any case, what can we do with airplanes? With airplanes, there's nothing to do except to improve the efficiency of the existing airplane by new fuselage shape, materials, reducing, for example, taxing. And but according to some studies, the energy demand, the energy savings could be 50% of the energy demand, but this is very optimistic, results. The only things that will really decarbonize the aviation sector is the implementation of sustainable aviation fuels, which are basically e-fuels and biofuels. At the moment, these fuels are not available in a quantity that is necessary to supply all the fleet of the airplane. So there is much work to do as a research community in order to develop and to support the scale up of these fuels. And electrification of airplane is also an option, can be applied only basically to short haul flights, but is combined to sustainable aviation fuels will give us the possibility to reduce the emission of the sector by 50%. Just a few words about sustainable aviation fuels. There are some targets, emission targets from the aviation sector, but also international, imposed by international organizations, but also by, in this case, by I'm talking about Europe. So the implementation of sustainable aviation fuel has to be done. They are to be implemented in aviation tomorrow morning. So by 2025, we need to introduce 2% of sustainable aviation fuels in our airplane, and we produce almost 0.05% of this fuel. So sometimes the targets that we need to achieve are not very, that does not match with what is the real capacity production that we have. So there's something to do from this point of view. I'm not only talking about only SAF, but also use of hydrogen, which can really decarbonize the sector, but we don't know why. So what can we do to decarbonize the sector, the aviation sector? One option is, of course, starting from airports. Airports are very energy intensive structure, very energy intensive infrastructure of the aviation sector, and they consume almost more than 10% of the energy consumption of the sector. Of the aviation sector. We can try to reduce, imagine an airport is like a city that consumes a significant energy demand for heating, cooling, ventilation. And this airport have been designed without following sustainable criteria in the last year. We can see this, we can easily notice this when we travel. So for sure there is much to do on the decarbonization of airport infrastructure, starting from the envelope. and from the energy system that produce electricity and produce heat in our airports. These hubs can also become points of production and storage of sustainable aviation fuel. This is another point that we need to consider, and also they can become a point of production of renewable energy and storage of electricity. The airports in around the world, there are 40,000 airports, and 2,500 airports, they host almost 6 to 4 billion passengers per year. So this is a huge number. And we need to also exploit the fact that people, they reach our airport probably by car. They use the car to park the car at the parking station of our airport. And this can be another way to incentivize the use of electric vehicles and to use the battery of the electric vehicles in order to help the airport to increase its battery capacity. Airport can also become distributor of electricity to the grid, but also distributor of electricity through the airplane. There are several examples in the world of refurbishment of airports. Some of them are very famous, and some of them are still in the process to become best practice of energy efficient airport. I'm thinking about here, I included the JFK airport, but also there is the Singapore airport where is working a lot in order to become the first producer of sustainable aviation fuels for aviation. From this point of view, we have done some studies with airport operators, and as the same from railway operators, they don't have the skills in order to implement sustainable action, a sustainable measure in their facilities. So something that we can do is also in this case provide tools for the facilitating simulation aid design for airport energy system. We can help them to understand which are the best possible solution to be implemented in order to achieve decarbonization, but we can also allow them, give them some tools in order to size the component size, the renewable energy system implemented in the airport, but also to identify possible strategy operation between airport and ships. Just let me see the time. Okay, airport and ships. I think we are in time. See, together with the aviation sector, the shipping sector is the other sector that is quite very difficult to decarbonize. As I said before, 100% of fuel used by maritime is oil, and in order to reduce the consumption of ships and of ports, we need to better exploit the consumption, the binomial between ships, air, and ports. Especially international shipping is very much consuming. 80% of the international transportation of freights run on ships, and there's no way to use other kind of transportation. Shipping sector consume 3% of the energy demand, with correspond to 1.9% of CO2 emission. And to put into perspective, if the shipping sector were a country, it would be the 6th emitter in the world, just after Japan, in terms of CO2 emission. In terms of greenhouse gas emission, it will be the 13th country in the world, after, maybe if I remember, after Canada. So imagine how difficult it could be to decarbonize one country like Canada, and so it is so big, the consumption and the emission of the shipping sector. According to International Maritime Organization, and according also to the community that works on maritime decarbonization, we have the technologies, and we know we have a roadmap to decarbonize ships. It's not easy as it seems because ships can be very different and they have a different purpose, but we have the possibility. We also know more or less, and we also, as a scientist, we work on this, how much the potential of each technology in order to reduce energy emission by ships. For example, by using full electric ship, of course, we can reduce hybrid and fuel electric, can reduce energy consumption by 50, 90%. We can reduce by up to 80% the energy consumption of ship if we reduce the speed of the ship. But there are different options that we can put in place. The problem is that we cannot use all these options all together. We cannot use this option today because some of them are not ready, commercially available at the moment. And I'm talking about fuels. Also for the ships, as the same for the aviation. The best option for the decarbonization of shipping sector are improving energy efficiency. This can be done by designing better in more performance marine engines or powertrains to exploit the waste heat recovery on board, to optimize some operating strategy during the operation of the ships. I'm thinking about how we can perform bunkering, or for example, we can activate an engine on board. There is also the option on ships nowadays to electrify ships by using, to install wind and solar technologies in combination with storage system on the ship in order to improve energy efficiency. Regarding to the waste heat recovery and the management of waste heat on board, this technology has gained a lot of attention in the last year. Ships, in particular, for those who are not involved in this sector, the engine that produce power for the propulsion and for the energy system, they must be cooled, and this energy can be used to produce extra production electricity, to produce cooling, or to produce water by desalination. So the ship, if you can we can imagine that is a city that travel and navigate our seas by changing position in time and space, and this is a very so implementing technology that allow to produce extra energy by recovering energy produced on board is quite very important. Waste heat recovery not only in something that we can do and we know how to do it, but can allow us to achieve 15% energy efficiency on board. 50% energy efficiency on board is correspond to a significant amount of money that can be used by ship owners to be reinvested in more advanced energy efficiency measures. So this is something that we need to always consider. Low emission fuels, the same that apply to the aviation. We are waiting for using ammonia and hydrogen in the shipping industry in order to reduce the energy consumption or the carbon emissions. In this case, these fuels are not nowadays commercially available. We will probably see the more and more bunkering infrastructure of ammonia and hydrogen in the next year, probably in the next 10 years. So by 2050, these are the key for the decarbonization of the shipping sector, but not today. And what else we can do? What better consider when we are talking about ships. Ships are not only emitting CO2 or greenhouse gas emission, but they also pollute significantly our cities. A ship, for example, according to some statistics, a ship all the ships, in this case, all the ships docked in Barcelona, in the port of Barcelona, produce 5 times more NOx, SOx than all the cars that drive in Barcelona, so on a yearly basis. And this has a huge impact on the health of people, on the air quality of our ports. This is why the connection of ports and ships not only is necessary to allow the decarbonization of the ships, but also to improve the air quality in coastal areas and in port cities. We can do it by cold ironing, so implementing, allowing the ship to turn off its engine when it's located in port. In order, and also when is for, let's say, port operation, any port operation. But there is also something else that we can do. We can use battery swap for providing electricity to ships that are already electrified or in part electrified. There we can also use power banks in order to supply electricity to ships. There are several options, and different scientists around the world are working on deploying these technologies. The port as energy hubs is something that is quite different from the other energy hubs that we that I discussed before, like train station or airport. The port is the only hub where all energy vectors can be produced, can be transformed, can be distributed in one place. And for example, I think about, and there are multiple options that can be used, implemented on ports in order to achieve electrification. Yeah, I finished. I have two slides. For example, we can produce renewable energy source, renewable energy by also exploiting marine energy. We can produce biogas by reusing the bio waste produced by ships, cruise ships that dock on our port. And this is something, these ports so play a very important role, crucial role in the decarbonization of the sector. They can also be used in order to produce electricity to our community, to export electricity in the renewable energy in the renewable energy community schemes. Is something that, for example, has been implemented, has been allowed in Italy few years ago. And from this point of view, our contribution, of course, is in the development of the analysis and development results that can allow ship owners, also ship builders, to understand how much energy efficient solutions can be which is the potential of each energy efficient solution to reduce the energy demands, reduce energy consumption of ships. So we have a crucial role in this as scientists. An example is reported here. We have been working on the development of simulation-based tool and digital twin tools to provide decision support for shipyards, equipment manufacturers, but also port authorities and ship refurbishment operators. This is something that must be much more explored in this sector. Just to conclude about all the sector, the use of digital twin, but also the use of design simulation-based tools allowed us to identify the roadmap for the decarbonization of ships. We, by our estimation, our calculation, we found out that there is no possibility to achieve energy efficiency, to reach the target imposed by International Maritime Organization in the short term. In the short term, we can, of course, achieve energy efficiency, achieving, in this case, primary energy savings by up to 6% by implementing single technology, available technology, the one that I possibly related to the production of electricity on board, production of water on board, production, recovery of thermal energy on board. And only in few years we can see how much we will see the implementation of low emission fuels on ships to achieve the emission targets objective that we need. which is the lesson learned from all the works that we have developed in this year from the scientific point of view, but also helping a company in order to reduce, in order to decarbonize this sector. First of all, there is no single solution for the transportation sector. So each subsector, each particular transportation system has different solution. The combination of the hubs and the transportation system for sure can provide additional support to the decarbonization of transportation sector. It is a key solution, is essential in order to, as we noticed before, to provide renew energy to the transport system too. And something else that we can summarize of the information got by analyzing transportation sector is that the electrification, the full electrification is something that we can see in the long term. In the short term, we can decarbonize with alternative fuels, in particular in the heavy transportation. The road electrification, of course, is the key aspect, the key technology for the decarbonization of roads. And more importantly, that we really, as researchers, have in some way the possibility, we have the possibility to support all stakeholders in order to understand in which direction they have to go, which is the best technology that they have to implement on in order to reduce CO2. And we also can provide, we need to provide data also for policymakers in order to define the right kind of incentive and policies for the decarbonized sector. Thank you very much. If you have some questions.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for the complete and comprehensive coverage of
I
the
brought to keep it simple. It was very difficult.
I guess it was very difficult to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to, we have 10 minutes or so to accept questions. Yeah, we have one. Yeah, sorry. I want to.
Osvaldo Seneca from CNR in Naples. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I just want to know, what is your real idea of using hydrogen in transport? Because while I do see hydrogen in heavy industry, in a controlled environment, I'm really scared of hydrogen on a truck with car accidents and stuff like that. What is your opinion on this?
My opinion is that for sure I see the use of hydrogen in transportation. I don't see the use of hydrogen in transportation for road transportation, for light duty vehicles. I see the use for trucks for long distance transportation of goods. The hydrogen can be used also for transportation of other transportation system, especially if there are some objection to the use of hydrogen in the freight transport that I showed before. There are also other technology that we have to imagine in the next years. And I always think about autonomous vehicles, no? So the use of autonomous vehicles can also improve also the use of hydrogen for in case people are not encouraged to use hydrogen on the transportation system. Hydrogen can also be used on trains, as we saw before. And in Italy, we will see the first train running on hydrogen by the end of the years. There will be other countries, China. I read this news a few days ago that are completely they're disoperating some trains and some trucks working with hydrogen because people are not doesn't feel, I mean, encouraged to use this kind of transportation. But yes, I see the use of hydrogen is for long travel, long distance, especially when you know the distance is doesn't change, is set for transportation is good. Why not?
Domenico Borello, Sapienza. Thank you, Anna Maria, for
You're welcome.
I agree with all of you say. And I had just a question about the use of electric transportation in the city. You said, and I agree, that in the next year we will have 70% of the people living in cities. So we can expect to have cities that are more and more crowded with very tall buildings.
Very dense.
Yeah, in the center of Rome, for example, where I live, and it is unfeasible to imagine that we can find sufficient recharging station. I cannot buy a car of myself because I live in a tall building and I don't have the possibility to have a plug for connecting my car. And this is something that I see as a problem. But more important, it is something that in Rome it was discussed in these days, in these years. You know, if you oblige a shift towards the electric vehicles, you are making a sort of tax on the poor people, because most of the most pollutant cars that are present in the city are owned by people that is not so rich, so they cannot afford an expensive car. So this type of shift could have a very high social impact. Do you have some suggestion or ideas for this specific situation in the
This is something that in fact, I said we need to incentivize the use of electric vehicles to make them more affordable also for anybody. And of course, this is an issue because at the moment, electric vehicles can be only purchased by, rich people because the cost of electric vehicle is still high. But I hope that with time, this will, of course, will change with the right incentives on the sales on the electric cars. And also there is something else that you mentioned at the beginning, in your question, is you don't find electric charging point. This is something that we have to work on. So the infrastructure of charging infrastructure has to be improved in the city center, but especially outside from the city center. But there is also something that we need to know that electric cars and general cars are not used as we think. Cars are used for 5% of time average. Okay? So most of the time they are parked, and most of the time, and so if we consider the charging cycles, is not a big deal to go find the charging point in order to use your battery. There are also some applications that can be used in order to find charging point in the city, in the city center especially. The city center, I don't see it as a problem because there will be hopefully there will be much more possibility to charge our vehicles in the city center. Not your opinion, huh? Please.
Yes.
Okay, Goran Krajic, University of Zagreb. I just have additional question to this one. So I think the problem is in the road transport. So for the next conference, SDEWES in Rome, what do you think if people will select to go from Gallery Borghese by bus for 1.5 hours, or they will select to fly with autonomous drone to this location in 10 minutes, and how this selection is reflected in future prediction of demand for this purpose and for this service?
Let's go by walk because we can go by walk.
But
Yeah,
it's,
so-
Yeah, one here. Yes, please. Maybe, okay.
Thank you very
Make
much.
it good.
You
You're
presented a lot of the data from the transport in the scale of the Europe, right?
The scale of?
Europe, it is
Yeah,
about
yeah,
for the Europe.
most of them.
So my question is, I have two remarks or two questions. One of them, what is the most difficult problem and critical point? It means because I can see that full electrification is needed. Yes. What does it mean? Where we find the electricity? It is what the first question. Okay. And the second question is, what do you think transport with hydrogen, using the hydrogen? Hydrogen, it means in engine fired with hydrogen, or of course with fuel
Fuel
cell.
cell.
Yeah.
Of course, as I said before, we need to improve the electricity capacity of renewable energy in the world and global scales. In some countries, the capacity. It's half of the country in the world, they don't have the capacity to power the electric vehicles that we plan to have in our roads by the end of 2050. So we need that. This is why, if you remember the beginning of the presentation, this is why we, to scale up to deploy the use of electric vehicles, but also to allow to support the transition to the electrification during the transition, we need to use the electric vehicles as a storage system. So improve the use of electric vehicles as storage. We have distributed storage in our cities, and we can use, but not only in our cities. Imagine, for example, in airports. No? We go to the airport still now, because we don't know in 20 years what will happen. But now we go to the airports by our car. We park our car in our airports. They sit there for days. The airport operator knows exactly the time that the battery are there. They can know exactly the charging level of the battery. They can use the battery of our cars, of the fleet parked at the airport, in order to provide flexibility, to increase the use of the storage of a renewable energy system. So together with improving the renewable energy, improving the capacity of renewable energy system, we need also to work on the infrastructure, the grid infrastructure, and electric vehicles can help the infrastructure, can help us to alleviate the impact of the electrification on our system. For hydrogen in the best option to use hydrogen is to use fuel cell, of course, to use green hydrogen. I don't see the use of hydrogen produced in the different way, only green. I also mentioned the use of hydrogen trains, but hydrogen trains are only 35%. The efficiency of hydrogen trains compared to electrified trains is very low. So the first option is always the electrification. And the hydrogen can be used when we cannot electrify. And this is why not? I mean, I'm not against hydrogen at all. I mean, we are. There is also a discussion on using nuclear, micronuclear reactor on ship for ship applications. So there will be more technologies to be used to decarbonize the system.
The final question here, yes. Maybe you can shout.
Şirkılkış TÜBİTAK and Metro Turkey. Anna Maria, thank you very much for your presentation, going from city, intercity, and international shipping, and asking us the question what researchers can do to decarbonize each one of these domains. I think each one of us do have a very important role to play, spanning from policies to planning. For example, more cities could have mobility laws like Mexico City. With this said, especially considering the upcoming special report on climate change in cities, what priority areas would you see considering the transport also in the cities? Thank you.
Priority areas, the electrification of light duty vehicles, because they emit 70% of the emission at the urban level. And with urbanization, more and more people, as Professor Borrello said, more and more people will live in our cities. So we have an incredible increase enhancement of requests of electricity for transportation in our cities. So we need to reduce the number of electric vehicles also by using, let's say, also car sharing systems is another option. So there are many things to do, but road electrification is the first option.
Okay, I think we must stop here in order not to fall up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Anna Maria.
Thank you very much.
And we'll continue the program you have at hand. Yeah. We are
Yeah, no, I think, only to electrify, it is a certain tax for who people can afford to buy a car. To increase it so big. Yeah. To reduce this problem of critical raw material because it is or in 1 year or in 10 years, we don't push public exposition. Yeah. What the previous one?